What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Ixalan set review. This will be a commander focused set review of the cards that are coming out. And just so you know, this video will cover the white, blue, black, red, and green cards of the set. I will not be doing multicolored artifacts, planeswalkers, or legendary creatures in this video. That's going to be a separate video. So on this one, I'm just going to do the white, blue, black, red, and green cards. Nice little value commander card. So if you want to skip ahead to a certain color, I will be going in that order. If you want to kind of drag your mouse around to see whatever color you want to go for. But yes, and also, this video is brought to you by mtgotraders.com. So whenever the set releases, if you want your very own dinosaur to ride, head over to mtgotraders.com. So let's jump into the card review. Let's start off with the white color. So white has some pretty unique cards. They had some nice little hate cards that got printed in here. Not really hate, but just some nice little, very white style cards. We have Ashes of the Abhorrent. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or activate abilities of cards in graveyards. Then whenever a creature dies, you gain 1 life. That is a very unique card. It's only 2 mana. Let's say that you are building some sort of black-white control style commander deck. Having that whenever a creature dies style effect, it's nice just to have that on enchantment. It's pretty cheap. We also have Kinjali's Sunwing, flying creatures your opponents control into the battlefield tapped. Nice little 2/3. Then we have Tocatli Honor Guard. Creatures entering the battlefield do not cause abilities to trigger. So these are all beautiful cards that would slot very well into any sort of Thalia style deck or any sort of Hate Bear style deck. Outside of that, we have some nice, pretty cool white cards. We have Axis of Mortality. Love this card. I love the card art. It's got the, all right, actually, let's start with the actual text itself. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exchange 2 target players. Excuse me. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may have 2 target players exchange life total. So you look at the card art, they have that little staff with the red rose on one side, the black rose on one side. Love it. It's only 6 mana, so it's definitely doable in Commander, and that's also going to trigger any sort of life loss or life gain triggers cards. Let's say you have Sanguine Bond out there, that would be something that would trigger it too. So really cool card. We have Sheltering Light. This is not going to set the Commander world on fire, but let's say that you do have some sort of, maybe you have a Darien deck. I'm thinking about putting this into my Darien deck. Something that where you really need to protect one of your expensive commanders. It's 1 mana, it's going to gain indestructible, and then the Scry, it's nice. At the end of the day, white doesn't really have a lot of library manipulation, so to have the Scry 1 for 1 white mana, it's not the best, but hey, it'll get the job done. And there's also Settle the Wreckage. Now, this might slot well into like a Thalia deck. Let's say that you have something like Aven Mindsensor out there to where they can only search the top 4 cards of their library, or they have the Arbiter on the battlefield where they're going to have to pay 2 to search, and let's say they're tapped out on mana for some reason. Exile all attacking creatures. Basically, it's just a 4 mana path to exile for all the creatures. So you're going to get the nice exile effect, but at that point, that player may search the library for that many basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle their library. So it's really not that bad, instant speed to get rid of all your opponent's creatures, and let's say it is late game, they only got a couple cards in hand, you may end up giving them anywhere, 4 or 5 lands, but if they don't have any cards in the hand to really do anything with it, can't really take advantage of the extra mana. So definitely a unique card. I'm not sure if it's really going to settle into the Commander scene or not, but it's pretty cool to see that. Outside of that, we got some pretty cool white creatures of Awakening Sun's Avatar, and then Goring Ceratops, Bishop of Rebirth, and Mavrin Fiend. So, with the Sun's Avatar, it's going to enter the battlefield. If you cast it from your hand, destroy all non-dinosaur creatures. So, not really sure how much play this is going to see, but simply having a nice little effect that's going to destroy everything on the battlefield, then leave you with the nice little 7/7. That's, it's always worth to kind of note that. Goring Ceratops, 7 mana. It has double strike. Then, whenever it attacks, other creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. So, kind of like a poor man's Crater Hoof maybe, or something like that. It's 7 mana. There's just going to be some times where you swing in with that, and giving all of your entire team a nice little double strike effect might be enough to kind of help you close the game out. So I just wanted to highlight that one. Bishop of Rebirth. This is really unique. 5 mana. Whenever it attacks, you may return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So let's say you're playing like a Ravos Soul Tender style deck where you have some creatures in the graveyard. This will be another way for you to kind of swing in and return to the battlefield. And the fact that it has Vigilance is really nice. It's a 3/4 body. You kind of stop people from swinging in, at the same time get some nice little recursion. I don't know if I'm going to throw this into my Church of Athreos deck. It's a little expensive for that one. I kind of like the converted mana cost to kind of hang around 3 for my creatures. So I might test it out, kind of see how it goes. And then the last one, Mavrin Fiend, Dusk Apostle. Whenever one or more non-token vampires you control attack, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Now, I'm not really sure if you could actually build him by himself, as far as I'm not sure what white vampires are out there. Maybe you can do some sort of token build. But this would definitely slot well into, let's say you bought the Commander 17 vampire deck. This would be a great addition that's coming out in the new set to throw that in there as a nice little utility card, or simply just put it in the Edgar deck if that's something that you do have. Next card that we have is pretty cool. We have Sanguine Sacrament. So, double white and colorless, you gain twice X life. Put Sanguine Sacrament on the bottom of its owner's library. So it's a really nice spell to begin with. You're going to gain life off of it. Then the fact that you could put it on the bottom of your library. And it kind of leads to some nice little interesting things. So you have Sanguine Bond on the battlefield. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. The fact that you can fire this off at instant speed is really good. And the fact that it goes on the bottom of your library to kind of rinse and repeat. You can use it as a tutor target. Outside of that, it'd just be a good card in Karlov, or something as simply as Eiley, getting that down to kind of gain some nice little life. The last card that we have in the white section is the Legion's Landing. Whenever it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Then, whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, transform Legion's Landing. So, for 1 mana, a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink, that's, it's not too bad. It's not the best, but it's not too bad. But if you're going to be playing white, maybe you're playing some sort of mono white weenies deck, or this would, I'm definitely considering putting this into my Darien deck and also into my Catcher deck just to get some extra bodies on the battlefield. So once you get those, once you get it to flip, it's going to turn into a Danto, the first fort. Add white mana to your mana pool, and then for 3 mana, tap, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Now, the white mana obviously is nice. It's going to flip. You have an early enchantment. You get the 1/1 white soldier, the vampire token on the battlefield. But having the 3 mana to create a 1/1 white vampire creature token, that just screams commander. It's not super cheap. It's not, set the world on fire, but hey, it's a pretty good card to throw in any sort of mono white deck. Onto the blue cards, we have Spell Swindle. There we go. Counter target spell, create X colorless treasure artifact tokens, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. They have sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana to your mana pool. So, if you ever wanted to play with mana drain, you have a 5 mana drain in here. But yeah, it's a very unique card. I'm considering throwing it. Definitely going to go into my Damia deck. There's a lot of ways where we want to get some nice little cheap artifacts out there, or cheap ways to kind of ramp really quick. And then holding up a Spell Swindle to kind of counter a spell and get some nice little artifacts is always good. So really excited to play with this card. The other card we have is Overflowing Insight, 7 mana. Target player draws 7 cards. Just screams commander written all over it. Whatever you want to do with it, you want to throw it into any sort of replicate or copy spell style deck, you'll be able to draw 7 cards, or 14 if you want to copy it. But just a nice little mythic rare over there. The next one we have is Fleet Swallower. This is a very unique card. Whenever it attacks, target player puts the top half of his or her library rounded up into his or her library. Now, the important thing with this card is it says target player. So you can use it to mill your opponent out. Let's say you're building something like Phonax or something. Or if you're playing something like the Scorpion God, if you want to mill your opponent out to get some of their creatures, or if you want to mill your own graveyard, you can get creatures in your own graveyard for the activated ability off the Scarab God. Also, you can use it in addition to something like Phonax. It does have a nice little 6/6 body to tap and mill. And at the same time, if you're running Phonax and you have Dustmantle Guildmage in there, go for that nice little activation, swing in, put the top half of their library into their graveyard. That might be enough to just kind of win the game right there. So, really unique card, really unique effect, and just the fact that you can target yourself or the opposing player, it's really nice to have that option. The next card that we have is the Search for Azcanta. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put it into your graveyard. Then if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform it. Now, when you flip it, it's going to turn into the Sunken Ruin. Add blue mana to your mana pool. Then for 3 mana, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Reveal a non-creature non-land card from among them. Put them into your hand. The rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So, this is a great, it's a blue, if you think of it as a blue mana cantrip, the beginning of your upkeep, you get to look at the top card of your library, put it in the graveyard, or leave it on top. So it's just kind of scrying into the graveyard, which is really nice to have that repeated effect. Then once you get late game, you get it to flip into a land, add a little bit more mana to your mana pool, and then for 3 mana, you can look at the top 4 cards of your library. So, pretty good card. It's not really overpowered, but it's a really nice value card. The next blue card that we're covering is Jace, the Cunning Castaway. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, this turn draw a card, discard a card, -2, create a 2/2 illusion. And then -5, the important ability. Create 2 tokens that are a copy of Jace, Cunning Castaway, except they're not legendary. Really unique ability. I'm not gonna lie, the art is pretty goofy looking. I love Jace up there. It's just funny seeing Jace without his full robe on. But yeah, the -5 ability is really cool. You can do a lot of busted stuff with it. Let's say you have doubling season on the battlefield, and if an effect would put one or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many on the battlefield instead. So, and also whenever Jace enters the battlefield with doubling season, it's going to enter in with 6 counters instead of 3. So basically, it's going to go infinite with doubling season. Have doubling season on the battlefield. Get down Jace Cunning Castaway, go for the -5 ability, that's 2 more Jaces on the battlefield, and then just kind of rinse and repeat and have fun from there. If you want to add some extra fun to your Jace party, throw in the Chain Veil for a lot of activations and a lot of illusion creatures. Your friends will love you. You'll have a lot of fun with this. The next card is you probably won't. We have Tempest Caller. Nothing too crazy with this card. Enters the battlefield, tap all creatures target opponent controls. You know, it's always nice to have a cryptic command on a creature with a 2/3 body. We also have River's Rebuke, return all non-land permanents. Return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand. So it's going to cost 1 less than Cyclonic Rift, but at least you're going to be able to target somebody. Let's say that you're playing a 4-player game, you want to send just one certain player's stuff back to their hands. You have River's Rebuke. There might be cheaper cards or cheaper versions of this out there, but at least having a new card printed like that, at least it's worth a shot looking at it. The next card we have is Herald of Secret Streams. Creatures you control with a +1 counter on them can't be blocked. This is not a super crazy powerful card, but in any sort of deck that's going to have a counters matter theme, like I have a Cadell and Rayhan counters matter deck, this is an all-star in the deck. Creatures you control with +1 counters that can't be blocked. So really good card, wanted to note that one. They also have Dead-Eye Quartermaster. Whenever it enters the battlefield, search your library for an equipment card or a vehicle card, reveal it, put it into your hand. So there's a soft spot in my heart for any sort of creature that acts as an additional tutor. The vehicle part may not be worth it in blue, but let's say you're running Tromokratus, mono blue, a Voltron Tromokratus. You can search up an equipment or any sort of blue deck that matters about searching of equipment. It's good to have that option. And, it's always nice to have a little 2/2 body on the back end. Outside of that, we have Arcane Adaption. Pretty cool card, 3 mana and a blue. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So this is basically just Conspiracy, but it only costs 2 mana and a blue. This would slot really well into something like Gislin's Ralph, turning all of your creatures into zombies, and then really any other sort of deck that really cares about making sure all the creatures are the same. So that is the blue. Onto the black. We do have Boneyard Parlay. Love this card. 7 mana, so it's really not that crazy, especially if you're building a mono black deck. Exile up to 5 target creature cards from graveyards. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put all cards from one pile into your battlefield under your control, the rest in their owner's graveyard. So basically, it's kind of like a graveyard Factor Fiction. I love Factor Fiction to begin with, and the fact that you can have a 7 mana spell that's Factor Fiction for reanimation, I'd love it. And at the end of the day, you get to choose which pile you put on the graveyard. So let's say that you want to put something like Elder Norn out there, or they just split it up to where you've got a bunch of value creatures in the other pile. Grab that value pile, put it out there. Really card, cannot wait to just jam this into every single mono black deck that I have. Gonti, Yahini, anything, just to have a lot of fun with. The next card that we have is Revel in Riches. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap. Tap, sack, add mana. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. Let's say you're playing a black-blue control style deck. You have the Spell Swindle. You have Revel in Riches out there. It's really not that crazy that you can get to 10 total treasures on the battlefield to kind of win you the game. And, just simply something like casting a board wipe whenever a creature controls dies. So let's say you're playing in a multiplayer game. You have Revel in Riches on the battlefield. You cast a Damnation. You blow up 10 creatures, which is, maybe 3 or 4 creatures a person. Then you end up with 10 treasure on the battlefield, you're going to win the game. So it's almost kind of like a nice little alternative win condition for mono black. So it's always nice to get stuff like that. Okay, on to the next card. We do have Bloodcrazed Paladin. I love this card. 2 mana, 1/1. It has flash. Whenever it enters the battlefield with a +1 counter for each creature that died this turn. So it's a very unique ability. This would slot really well in any sort of Aristocrats deck that you're looking to build. In fact, I'm going to definitely throw it in my Henny deck and my Bantu deck. Outside of that, since it does have Flash, let's say that you have a bunch of creatures on the battlefield and your opponent casts a Damnation on their turn, sorcery speed. So, they blow up an entire board. You can flash this in at the end of your opponent's turn to end up with a nice little Bloodcrazed Paladin, untap, and then have a nice little, let's say, 10-10 swinging across. It's, hey, he's a nice little crazy from the blood. Outside of that, then it also slot really well into any sort of deck that cares about killing creatures like Yahenni. Next card we have is Vraska's Contempt. Pretty cool card. 4 mana, exile target creature or planeswalker, you gain 2 life. So, you know, it's always nice to have cards that actually deal directly with planeswalkers at instant speed, and then you gain 2 life, which is, okay, that's pretty cool. You know, may make the difference in a game. There's also Duress. You know, this card has been around forever, but I just wanted to highlight it because it has a new art, and I don't know, I just really like the art on it. It looks pretty cool. Outside of that, we are not running, but there's Rune Raider. It has Raid, 3 mana. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature this turn, reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand, you lose life equal to the card's converted mana cost. So basically, we kind of have like a Dark Confidant that grants you a bonus from attacking. So it's always nice to draw cards in Commander, then having something that just gives you extra value off people swinging in is always really good. Definitely going to throw this in my Henny deck because we're always going to be swinging in with her, and to get some nice little extra card draw is always nice. Next card we have is Deadeye Tracker. You know, once again, this is not too crazy, but having the nice little graveyard exile effect and some sort of mana sink in a commander when it gets late game just to do something is always nice. 2 mana, exile 2 cards from a opponent's graveyard, Deadeye Tracker, Explore. So it's always nice to have a little mana sink off that. The next card we have is Costly Plunder. As an additional cost to cast it, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. The reason I have this in there is because this is a strictly better Altar's Reap. Altar's Reap says sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. This one says creature or artifact. So if you're running Altar's Reap in any sort of deck, this would be something that you can swap it out with to kind of get a little bit extra versatility as far as sacrificing an artifact or a creature. So definitely going to throw this in my Aristocrat style decks, and I may end up kind of throwing it into some of my mono black decks as a way to you know, there's just sometimes where you just need to, you know, it's late game, maybe you're going to lose, you just need to draw a couple extra cards at the cost of getting rid of an artifact or something like that, and I would definitely use that in Costly Plunder. The next card draw we have is pretty cool, is Sword Point Diplomacy. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. For each of those cards, put that card into your hand unless an opponent pays 3 life, then exile the rest. So once again, with Punisher mechanics, usually your opponent's going to take the 3 life if it's a really good card. But this is a unique card. It's a unique ability, and then having the option to kind of gain that, to get those 3 cards in your hands is pretty cool. Outside of that, we have Sanctum Seeker. Whenever a vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life for each vampire. And then we also have Bishop of the Bloodstained. 5 mana. Whenever it enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life for each vampire that you control. So a nice little Grey Merchant vampire over there, and a nice little Hell Rider for the Sanctum Seeker. Both great vampire cards. Both would slot really well into an Olivia deck or an Edgar deck. Just really good value off those cards. All right, on to the green cards. Oh, excuse me, red cards. We do have Rowdy Crew. It has Trample. Whenever Rowdy enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards at random. If 2 cards share a card type are discarded this way, put 2+1 counters on Rowdy Crew. Red always has the ability to kind of do this random card draw, or you know, you have Gambled where you can search a card up but you have to randomly discard it. So red can get you card advantage, but you're going to have that random discard element. This is probably not going to make it into every single red commander deck out there, but in certain decks it's pretty good. You know, let's say you're playing Duretti, you know, but just cares about recurring stuff out of the graveyard. So simply having this come into the battlefield, draw 3 cards, discard 2 cards at random, you're already playing a red artifact reanimator deck. So, don't really care about what you discard. You know, there'll be able sometimes where you care about what you discard, but having that effect to go for it's really nice. And stuff like Feldon of the Third Path, put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in a graveyard, except it's an artifact. So, you can still get some nice little value off the Rowdy Crew, throwing it into a deck like this. The next card that we have is Star of Extinction. Destroy target land. Love the card, love the art. Star of Extinction deals 20 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. Now, you're sitting there thinking, 7 mana to destroy my buddy's planes, basic planes over there. That's really expensive. The cool thing about this card is it deals 20 damage to each creature and each player. So it's almost like a board wipe, but just the fact that it hits a land is really kind of flavorful. But you can kind of use it to your advantage. Let's say that you're playing a deck that has Stuffy Doll. 20 damage to Stuffy Doll, you're going to be able to redirect it to target player. Or same thing with Boros Reckoner. Whenever it's dealt that much damage, it deals that much damage to target creature or player. So it's a red board wipe, it's 7 mana, but at the same time, it's almost kind of a build around me card. You can use Starved Extinction to kind of deal some double damage. Let's say you have one of the red enchantments up there that deals double damage. If it deals damage, it deals double. So that's something you can knock 40 life off a 7 mana spell. So really unique card and just very flavorful and on point with the asteroid swinging across. The next card we have is Tilo Nali's Skin Shifter. Really cool card. It's 3 mana, it has haste. Whenever it attacks, it becomes a copy of another target non-legendary creature until end of turn. So it's a really unique ability that this card has to kind of copy it on the attack. There's different things you can do with it. Let's say you're running a Goblin deck, you can have it copy Warren Instigator, and once it deals combat damage to a player, you may kind of dump some Goblin creatures out of your hand onto the graveyard. Let's say you're playing a Temur Value deck, you can have it become a copy of Trigon Predator. It's going to gain that flying, it can deal combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment, then still kind of keep you open as far as if you want to change it into something else later. And it would also slot really well into a Grinzo Dungeon-born deck. It has a 0/1 ability. Then you can use it as a nice little amplifying effect to copy any other sort of creature coming across. So really unique ability, and it just kind of screams a nice little red card. The next card that we have is Captivating Crew. Love this card. 4 mana, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. Love this card. It's a perfect, beautiful commander card. I will definitely be using it in Breon WrestleMania. In fact, he's probably going to be his tag team partner on this one. And the fact that it is an activated ability. It's not just an enter the battlefield ability. So if you have a lot of mana, you can actually have this charming person have your opponent's creatures kind of join your crew. The other card we have is Rampaging Ferocidon. It has Menace, and this is kind of like a red hate card. Players can't gain life, and then whenever another creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. So let's say you're playing some sort of Porphyro stack to where you want to really get some nice little value off creatures entering the battlefield. You can start dealing that 1 damage, and you can make them not be able to gain life, which is a really good way to kind of help you push any sort of game plan that you're going for. The next card that we have is Vance's Blasting Cannons. Really unique card. It's a legendary enchantment. It's almost like the Citadel card. The name's escaping me, right? The Monastery Siege, I think it's Monastery Siege. I can't remember, but it's the red enchantment siege card. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast that card this turn. Then, whenever you cast your 3rd spell in a turn, you may transform it into Vance's Blasting Cannons, which will turn into Spitfire Bastion. Tap, add red mana to your mana pool, then for 3 mana, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player activation. The very unique thing about this is, let's say you get this down and you just want to keep that red card advantage going. Whenever you cast your 3rd spell in a turn, you may transform it. It is a may ability, so if you'd rather have it stay as an enchantment that's getting you an extra card each turn, you can definitely do that. Or if you want to have it kind of flip over into the Spitfire and have a nice little 3 mana burn spell land for you, you can definitely go for that. Alright, on to the next one. We have our green cards. We have pretty cool card. We have Growing Rights of Itlamok. Whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Then, at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform it. It will turn into a land. Beautiful. Cradle the Sun. Add green mana to your mana pool, then add green mana for each creature that you control. So, if you play 1 versus 1 commander, Guy's Cradle got banned, this would definitely be a good option for you to replace it with. And the fact that it just, if you're playing mono green, any sort of green creature-based deck where you're running a lot of mana dorks, getting to 4 creatures is really not that crazy, really quick, and to have it tap for each creature you control is really nice. It's not just going to be each green creature; it's for each creature you control. So really good. Definitely see this being a commander staple going into the future. The next card that we have is Death Gorge Scavenger. You may be sitting here thinking, hey, what does this card remind me of? It reminds me of a terrible card. Let's start off with it first. So, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may exile target card from a graveyard. If a creature card is exiled this way, you gain 2 life. If a non-creature card is exiled this way, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If you're sitting there thinking this card sounds terrible, why would anybody play with this? I agree with you. It is a terrible card. In fact, it reminds me of Scavenging Ooze, which is just as bad as a card, if not worse. So, don't play either of these cards. Leave the graveyards free. Both of these cards are very terrible. I would not put them in any sort of commander deck that you ever want to build. Yeah, it's just not good. Not good magic. Alright, Alright, the next card we have is Verdant Rebirth, Shaper Sanctuary, and Slice and Twain. Verdant Rebirth, it's a nice little utility card. Until end of turn, target creature gains. Whenever this creature dies, return it to its owner's hand. Let's say we're playing Gitrog. This is a good way for us to, they're going to spot remove on Gitrog. We can cast it, have it return back to our hand. And the fact that we get to draw cards is always really nice. Or let's say you can't really get any action going. It's just 2 mana, draw a card, which is not the worst thing in the world. We also have Shaper Sanctuary, definitely going in Gitrog because it is an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. Nice little way to, if you're playing any sort of Enchantress style build, to get a little bit of extra value off your enchantment, or if your opponent's going to blast some of your Enchantress pieces, you can get some nice little card draw off of that. Then Slice and Twain, it is 4 mana, a little expensive, destroy target artifact or enchantment, but you get to draw cards, so I just kind of wanted to note it off the card draw fact. Then, we have some nice little green utility creatures. We have Carnage Tyrant, Deeproot Champion, Verdant Sun's Avatar, and Waker of the Wild. So with the Tyrant, can't be countered, trample, and hexproof, 7/6 beat stick, 6 mana, which is really not that crazy in Commander, so really good Commander card. Nothing too crazy, it's just a good finisher card for Commander. And then we have Deeproot Champion. I could see this slotting really well in any sort of Simic deck that's going to be casting a lot of spells. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1 counter on it. So it's not really going to be a like a temporary bonus for that turn. You will be getting those counters on there, so you can put it in any sort of counter matters deck, or if you simply just want to include it in your Simic deck for a nice little value creature, it'll definitely appreciate it. Now we have Sun's Avatar. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we're going to gain life equal to that creature's toughness, or whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to gain life equal to its toughness. So this would be a good way for any sort of green deck to, let's say that you just need some sort of life gain in your deck. This is really, it's a 5/5 beat stick, it's 7 mana, which is not that expensive really if you're thinking about going mono green. And the fact that all of your creatures gain you some life, it's always nice little effect. Then we have Waker of the Wilds. I'm not really sure. I was trying to think what this was slot into, but I just wanted to highlight it because it's a really unique card. 4 mana, then has activated ability of double green and X. Put X counters on a target land you control. That land becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. So let's say you're playing mono green, you just want to turn some of your lands into some nice little Crater Hoof that's coming down next turn. That's a good way to kind of go for that. The next kind of green cards we have are Ravenous Daggertooth. We also have Ranging Raptors and the Ripjaw Raptor. These are all dinosaurs that have some sort of effect when they're dealt 1 damage. If you deal damage to Ravenous, it's going to be gain 2 life. 1 to the Ranging Raptors, you can be able to search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then where Ripjaw is dealt damage, draw a card. So when you combine these with the nice little Sun-Crowned Hunters, it deals 3 damage to target opponent, and the Bellowing Agusar butchered that one. Whenever it's dealt damage, put a +1 counter each other creature you control. You have the true dinosaur commander right here in Marath. Remove a counter from it, deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Yeah, this is, it's got me wanting to build Marath dinosaurs on this one. I just kind of wanted to highlight this interaction. It's the focal point on the green creature cards. But with Sun-Crowned and Bellowing, it's definitely a good way for you to build a Naya dinosaur deck with Marath being the lead off some of these enraged creatures. I just, the thought of pinging the Ranging Raptors, start getting a bunch of basics on the battlefield. Oh yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. But yeah, that's going to be the set review, the Commander set review for right now. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.